Hi, I'm Talia.
And I'm Oscar.
And welcome to the Relationships podcast. For the next 90 minutes, we will take you through the highs and the lows and all the in-betweens of a relationship.
And we're going to be getting into some nitty-gritty conversations, so no matter what I say, just know I love you.
I love you too.
So let's get into it. And let's start by talking about our relationships for the week.
And relationships for the week. You go first this time.
So it's been 2 weeks since the last relationship.
It has?
I feel like for the sake of continuity, I will try and keep it to the last week. And actually, the last week's been like dramatically positive in my mind. We've been on holiday for the past week. If you guys haven't been checking out our socials on Oz and Tallies and on Instagram, we have been on holiday with my family for the past week. And that has been to me, it was an overwhelmingly positive experience. I really, really enjoyed not only getting to see my family, which I often don't. We live technically in a separate country to them. So it was really nice to spend time with the family. But I do just want to, I feel like it's been overwhelmingly positive. And from the last week, I can't necessarily think of anything from the top of my head. Do you have anything from the top of your head from the past week?
From the past week?
I feel like I have one from before the past week.
Okay.
If you don't have anything really to roll with.
I think for me, my relationship is me again.
Oh.
No, not necessarily.
I don't know why I'm so disappointed to hear that I've not done anything wrong.
No, I'm just feeling very irritable at the moment, and I feel like everything you do is wrong.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's
well,
just
that took a U-turn.
I know it did. No, it's not you, it's me. It's because my hormones are at that place this week in the month where I actually am just feeling really pissed off by everything, and you've been doing a lot of things that have just been getting under my skin for no reason. Like, it's not even you doing anything.
Can you give me an example of something that I've done that's am I aware of it when I'm doing it at the time?
Yeah, usually. We've been bickering a lot. It's so funny that you don't think that we've been bickering, because we actually have. Like, last night we were bickering. Just keep it real. We give it a whirl.
Well, what did we bicker about last night?
We were talking about, I don't remember. It's always when we're hungry and we're tired and we just go back
I just kind of eliminate that from the equation because I just don't think that's a fair thing. I'll tell you mine. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's not necessarily anything that I can...
It's not you, it's me. So there's nothing you can do about it.
And I can't even necessarily think of any like immediate. I actually, like the night before when I told you I'd have food ready for like 7 o'clock.
Oh, so annoying.
And then you came home and I just came back from the shop.
You weren't even back yet. You'd been in the house for like hours and you hadn't done any of it.
Yeah, so
that was really annoying.
That was
really annoying. That's why I just spent the whole day cleaning.
Yeah. Sure,
that's okay though.
That could definitely be a relationship.
You're allowed to rest and relax. It's not your fault that I was working.
No. But the relationship for the week it's actually related to work. And it's not necessarily a you thing or a me thing. The instant that caused me to have like the relationship was you. In the nicest way, but it's very much an us thing. And it's when you've been doing different things during your day, and then you come back at the end of the day and there's an expectation that you're in the same place. So specifically for us,
I wouldn't say it's an expectation. I'd say it's an ignorance.
Yeah. It's an ignorance. But I'd spent the entire day socializing at work, having to do teaching. It was deadlines. It was the final week. I'm a lecturer at a university, and it's the final week of submission for the term, and everyone was the stress levels are really, really high. And I spent my entire day surrounded by stressful people. My work's actually very laid back in the final week because there's not much I can actually do at that point. I've been working hard the entire term. The final week, I'm actually just kind of there. And if anything's like, oh, that's drastically wrong, let's see if I can help. I didn't have any of that. So it was actually very chilled. But I spent my entire day around stressed people and people who were talking. It was very, very social. My entire day, my days were very, very social. And there was a day that I came home and you've basically been on your own all day. And you immediately went on a like verbal diarrhea of telling me about absolutely everything from your day. And I wanted to give you that validation and that affection and everything that you wanted. I didn't have it in me. It just didn't exist inside of my body at the time. And so we spent about 20 minutes of you talking at me feeling too tired to give you attention, and you just gradually getting more and more frustrated because I wasn't able to give you what you were looking for, and me just saying, you need to leave me alone for 10 minutes. With all, like, I love you, but please just go somewhere away from me. Let me put my head down for 10 minutes, close my eyes, just actually decompress from my day. And I'd spent a lot of time trying to. I literally just said that I need you to put your head down for 10. I need to put my head down for 10 minutes. Go into another room, leave me alone. And then after that 10 minutes, I came back and was actually a lot nicer. You were a lot more understanding of the fact that we'd had different days, and we were able to process that.
Because you told me, and you didn't tell me before.
Yeah, but I didn't know it in the moment. I was trying to be what you needed, and I just didn't have it in me. But the real relationship was that even now, I don't know what you wanted to share with me because you never did. In that moment, like, because I wasn't able to give you it in the moment passed for you, and then we never came back to it. And even now, 2 weeks, well, like 10 days later, I still don't know what it was you wanted to tell me or show me. And obviously you don't remember now. And that sucks.
It does.
And to me, that's the relationship.
I think we lose a lot of moments in that way, actually. We're both very in the moment people. And I think we both, like, if we need to say something, we need to say it then, or else we're not going to say it at all. And I think we struggle a lot with that. And I think that is something that causes a lot of friction in our relationships, because when relationships, multiple, in all of our relationships, because there are often times where that happens in the other ways rounds as well. Like, there's times where that happens to me, and it used to happen a lot during COVID, because I had a job and I was out and you worked from home. You
make it sound like I didn't have because I have a job.
No, I mean, I had like an in-person job, and I was out during COVID, which was rare for a lot of people in COVID, and you worked from home. And so I would come home and you hadn't spoken to anyone all day, and you would need to speak to me, but I had spent my whole day just being spoken at and needed. And I worked in support work at the time, which was lovely, and it's a very rewarding job. But the people that I worked with were very vocal, and they wanted to talk all day at me.
And the difference was I was working a call center job, and so I spent all my day talking, but not about anything. And I had the same conversation on repeat. I was working for like a financial company, but I was working as like a switchboard. So I'd be like, "Oh, hi, who do you want to speak to pensions?" Absolutely, I'll transfer you through now. And that was my entire day.
Yeah.
And so every day, it was just really rough.
It was, and it was difficult. And that always leads to things getting lost in translation. I think a big thing that I struggled with, actually, on the basis of communication within our relationship, is actually going from working together, living together, being around each other all the time, to suddenly we weren't working together anymore, and now all of a sudden I can't share every part of my day with you, because there are parts of my day that inevitably I'll forget. And it doesn't mean that they're not important parts that I want to share with you. And I felt a really great disconnect through that, where I felt like I didn't know who you were anymore. You didn't know me fully anymore, because I wasn't telling you everything, because I couldn't physically.
We went from living on top of one another and being in each other's pockets 24/7.
Yeah.
And then trying to keep updated. Yeah.
Trying to navigate that in a new. It was so difficult, and then making friends, and then speaking to other people, and then forgetting what I've told them versus what I've told you, and then more things get lost. And it kind of got to a place where I literally was like, oh my God, like, I feel like you don't even know me, because I feel like I've not told you all the parts that I want to tell you. And I'm a very, like, auditory processor, so I like to offload my whole day when I'm talking to someone or telling them about my day. But nowadays, I only really offload the highlights. Like, I don't really talk about the entire day, because I'm just like, I know now, like, I've learned now, and I've adjusted to it.
There are times where, I can tell that you're struggling to process parts of your day, and like you feel like you've told me things. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk through the entire day chronologically.
Yeah.
Like, you woke up this morning. What happened after you woke up? And like, but we don't do that very often, because who has for time?
I actually learned about that the other day. That's a therapy tactic.
Is it?
I can't remember what it's called. but it's something like the pathway analysis, where you basically, if someone comes in and they're identifying a feeling or an emotion that they can't quite understand, or they're like, that it feels like a disproportionate reaction to a situation, then they go through this, I'm going to call it pathway analysis. That's not what it's called, but pathway analysis, where they go back to the start, and it's like, right, take me through your day step by step, every single second from when you woke up, and then 9 times out of 10 you will pinpoint the moment in the day where you actually were affected, rather than the trigger situation.
Interesting. Oh, that's amazing.
So it's like, it was actually a self-harm training that I was going through, but it's about kind of going through that process and actually identifying triggers, and it actually helps de-escalate situations as well, because you think that you're angry at someone because they, you know, didn't invite you for coffee or whatever, but actually it turns out you're angry because earlier on in the day you've left your lunchbox on the counter, and you like, do you know what I mean?
I hate
and that's
when I leave my lunchbox on the counter. That always ruins my day.
But you know what I mean? It is annoying when you've prepared lunch, and you leave it or whatever,
you mean
things
I have
like
to
that.
go to McDonald's for lunch.
I know, but then that's annoying if you don't want to spend money. No. Like, it has a knock-on effect.
I'm joking, because I never go to McDonald's for lunch. That's a you thing.
I do. That's such a me thing. I love it. I haven't been to McDonald's recently enough. I actually don't remember the last McDonald's I had.
That's crazy.
We're going today.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
Nice try. I definitely think the shift in the way that we've communicated in our relationship, that for a period of time it was really difficult.
I feel like we were always very open though. Like, I feel like we've always had a very open, like, natural flow of communication. Do you know what I think the biggest change has been? Is understanding our own communication styles and our own needs. That's the hardest part in a relationship, I think, is like, you can't communicate to your partner what you're feeling or what you need or whatever if you don't know it within yourself. You know,
I entirely literally,
it's so hard to learn.
Using the anecdote, I came home and I wanted to give you what you needed, but in that moment, I actually needed something more.
But you didn't know that.
No, I didn't. I didn't know it in the moment,
and then it causes friction because I can't read your mind, and I think it's realizing
as soon as I communicated it, you were like, "That makes so much sense.
Exactly.
I will give you your space." And that makes total sense.
It does. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's so important. This is why people say it's so important to be your own person when you're in a relationship and work on yourself, because the only way your relationship can improve is if you are better, like, within yourself, in whatever capacity that means. Like, everybody has different things that they want to work on. Some people are brilliant at identifying their own emotions. I'm brilliant at identifying emotions in other people, not so good at doing it within myself. I am now because we've worked together on it, and that's why, as a partner, I feel like it helped me a lot when you would call me out on things and you would say, like, you're just doing this, you're hungry, or you're doing this because of that. And it's not minimizing the emotion,
Snickers.
Because you never would. Absolutely not. I hate Snickers. But, like, it was never minimizing the emotion. Do you never actually...
Do you remember that ad of, like, of Mr. T?
Yeah.
And him turning, like...
You're not you when you're hungry.
Yeah, I felt like there was an episode, like, there was a thing where he was an old granny, or, like, there was a granny who was, like, really upset. And it was, like, I just remember it being, like, slightly controversial, because he was literally like,
maybe
it was like a white old granny, and then she was upset and, like, hungry, and she was Mr. T, and then after, like, he ate the Snickers, he turned into an old, like, white lady, and I just remember being like, wow, that is wild.
I do not remember that.
Okay, maybe that's a fever dream I had.
Maybe you dreamt that.
If anybody,
maybe you're a racist in your dream.
If anybody remembers that or has any, like, context to that, please
leave the link to it in the comments below. If you can find it, please.
I'd love to know, because I just have this, like, recollection. Maybe it's been, wiped from the maybe it's the
blacklisted.
Those memories that everybody has.
Oh,
like,
Mandela effect.
Maybe it's Mandela effect.
Maybe it is.
Do you guys remember that? Does it exist online? Who knows?
Let us know.
Maybe we'll have to go to Mr. T and we can find out.
We'll have to ask him himself.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's still alive.
He is definitely still alive.
Is he actually?
Positive.
He was so old in those already. Was he not?
He wasn't that old.
He wasn't. I don't know anything. You've ruined my flow. I don't know what I was talking
about.
I'm
so sorry.
I don't even know what I was talking about, but yeah.
I can't remember what you were talking about either. I'm so sorry. It was like...
no. Yeah, it was about minimizing feelings.
Minimizing...
This is what I'm saying, guys. I'm getting so irritated by nothing at the moment. Like, that irritates me for no reason. And I'm only calling it out because I know people are going to watch this and they're like, wow, Tally was so peeved when you interrupted her, blah, blah, blah.
It was just a little fun anecdote.
It was funny, and it was genuinely interesting. Otherwise, I would have interrupted you back. Yeah. But I just, like,
I was,
tired.
but I absolutely wasn't trying to minimize your feelings in that moment.
No, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's like
That
when
was
you're
something-
identifying the feeling, not minimizing it, and you still allowed me to work through it. You were like, listen, I know that you're hungry right now, but that still sucks. So let's
That was something that we actually I think early on in the relationship weren't necessarily the best at.
Okay, change of angle.
For those who aren't watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, we just had a quick technical difficulty with the camera stopping recording. So sorry for the change of flow. But what we were talking about was like the concept of minimizing.
Yes.
And it was something that we weren't necessarily very good at, but in the opposite way.
When you say minimizing, you mean minimizing emotions.
Yes, minimizing emotions. But it's something that we weren't necessarily very good at. But we were very good at it. We were very good at minimizing emotion at the start of our relationship.
Yes.
And so we were therefore not very good for one another at the start of our relationship in that regard. There are so many examples of this. But one of the primary ones that you...
Yeah, we were talking about my panic attacks.
Yeah.
And when we first got together, I used to have a lot of panic attacks. It was just we'll talk a lot more about the start of our relationship on a different episode, but just for some context, the very beginning of our relationship was quite turbulent all around us. It was very... we were met with a lot of adversity, let's say, towards our relationship in all of the circles that we were in. And that was really difficult. And me already being an anxious person was already in a particularly difficult place in my life at the end of college and all the difficulties that came along with. And so I was just a very anxious person. I used to take a lot of panic attacks, and I always felt like Oscar was... Every time I'd take panic attacks, Oscar was always just very present and very there and able to help me, and I always really appreciated that. But you've expressed to me several times that you used to have to put, like, sometimes they would come about as a result of an argument, and especially at the start of our relationship, I was overcoming some fears and things roundabout arguments and things like that, and I used to just get really triggered whenever we would argue, and that was just really difficult for me. And when I say argue, like, we never really argued, but like whenever we would have disagreements, and as I say, like the beginning part of our relationship, a lot of the circles that we were in were really hostile towards us, mostly me, which was the biggest difficulty, because people kind of saw me as the suspect. Like, people saw me as a villain when we first got together.
Am I the villain?
I know.
I feel like at that early point, I don't know if it was around that point that I was necessarily I think I was quite good at not minimizing you and trying to make you feel valid in everything that you're feeling.
Yeah, but what we were saying is about minimizing our own emotions in order to face somebody else's, and that's what you used to do. Because we were saying, like, the minimization of other people's feelings came about.
I hadn't even processed that was the approach.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
100%.
Because the minimization of, like, each other's feelings came from a fact that we would minimize our own feelings to help the other person. So then there would be times that we would be like, oh, you're fine. Like,
there'd be times where you will go, you were entering into a panic attack when you'd upset me.
Yes.
And so I would have to put any form of my emotion aside in that moment in order to help you,
to de-escalate it.
And when we lived together in lockdown, this was something you became. This is how I know that you continued to have them during the lockdown period. Was that not at the very start, but during lockdown, you became aware of the fact that you were like, right, my grandfather passed away during the very, very, very beginning of lockdown, and that wasn't necessarily a very easy time for me, because I'd never had to experience the death grief of somebody before, and with lockdown and being so far away from family, it was a very difficult thing for me to process. And there were several times where I would be feeling upset about something, and it would actually just send you into a panic, and you would then get upset at yourself for saying, you can't feel your feelings right now because you're looking after me.
Yeah.
And that was
used to annoy me so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a turning point, but it was something that's so difficult, and I think a lot of it has come to be really understandable for me now that I've had counselling, but not necessarily for that, but I have experienced counselling, but I also now, the field that I work in with young people, and I've had some additional kind of mental health training and stuff like that, I've spoken to therapists before, or psychotherapists or psychologists or whatever, and they've all expressed that I exhibit a very high level of empathy. And so it's something that I think I didn't realize was coming into play a lot, is that I was absorbing your emotions. And so I was being triggered by your emotions, but not because you were crying or shouting or whatever. Not that you've ever shouted, but you know what I mean? I wasn't triggered by the actual actions.
Oh, well, to be fair, there was one time at the very, very beginning of our relationship that I did shout at you.
Yeah, you did. You learned not to do that ever again.
We'll talk about that later on.
Yeah. But it wasn't necessarily the actual actions that you were doing or things you were saying. Mm-hmm. I was absorbing your actual physical emotion and your energy that you were feeling, and so I was projecting it back to him. And it wasn't until, after that kind of first year when I started to be so frustrated by it, and it used to annoy me so much more, because I was like, I don't want to feel like I'm it made me feel like I was manipulating him, but it wasn't. It was a reflection, like I was reflecting your own emotions to get them out. And I think it's because you actually did struggle to express your emotions, especially negative emotions. Mm-hmm. You really did struggle, and you've always been in touch with your emotions. Like, you've always been quite emotional without actually being able to like verbalize what the emotion is that you're feeling. You just kind of would kind of go with the waves, but especially during that time, you struggled to actually kind of let things out.
I've never really been like a massive crier, massive hugger, massive anything. Like, my emotions aren't.
You've always been a big hugger.
Well, I like cuddling, but there's a difference between that and hugging. Like, I'm not I'm so happy I want to jump up and down with joy. No. I'm so angry I need to yell at you. Or yeah. I'm a very I'm not turbulent.
You're very neutral.
I'm very level.
Yeah.
And so at that time it was a very during that time I was experiencing a lot of emotion, and I simply didn't know how to express those emotions.
Yeah, it was a ride. It was a roller coaster.
And that's why you were absorbing it and
projecting it back. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've learned to control over the years.
So much better.
And I've become so much better at being able now to pick up on the emotion and identify what someone else is feeling and feel it from an empathy perspective and be like, wow, I understand how you feel right now. Like, I get that. And not, like, I can let it pass through me now, and I can let it just, like, go. You know what I mean? And there's certain contexts where that's helped me so much more because I'm so in touch with it. I actually have become so good at neutralizing my feelings or my response to absorbing other people's feelings that, like, I'm able to actually be in quite stressful or traumatic situations and not be, like, stressed or traumatized by it, because I'm just, like, I just let it flow through me.
But it also allows you to really get in touch with that other person and reconnect with the other person.
It goes the other way as well. And it is like a superpower. I love it. But like, now that I'm aware of it, but when I wasn't aware of it and it was just a difficult thing that we were facing, it was really difficult. And I've always been so sensitive and so, like, I was always just so scared of manipulating you. I don't know why that was like, and it still is, like, one of my biggest fears, but it's not even just I don't want you to feel like I'm making you do things like manipulation. It's more that I don't want to actually do it. Like, I don't want to actually do it. And I feel like my fear of doing it is clearly, like, proof that I won't or I never will, or my intention is never that. But I don't know what that says about me, that that's a big fear of mine. I don't really feel like I've ever been a particularly manipulative person either, so I don't really know why I feel like that's a fear of mine. But
it could be that you feel like you've been manipulated in the
past. Maybe I have,
or...
and that's why I don't want to be like, I don't know.
Or maybe, I mean, you at the start of our relationship, you got to see the end of my last relationship, and if that was I'm not going to say that was manipulative, but there were manipulative elements within there.
Yeah.
And maybe that was
wasn't at the start of our relationship, but at the start of our friendship.
Yeah, at the start of our friendship.
Saw it through a different lens than.
So maybe you were aware of the fact that could become
was a big trigger for you.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that it would be a trigger, but it could have become. It could have ended.
It was a big thing. I remember when we were first friends. That's what you used to talk about a lot, or at least that's what used to stick out to me. Was like the manipulation element of it. And I think that was something that I was experiencing as well.
I do feel
in a
like
very different way, though.
You've always been really good at picking up on the things that I'm totally oblivious to.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was one of them. I wasn't fully aware. I think I was talking about things that were going on.
Yeah.
Not being aware of the fact that that's not actually it's not normal.
Yeah.
Or healthy.
Yeah.
And there was lots of things that needed to be learned. But one of the big things that I really wanted to focus about. And I feel like that all of this has been a nice kind of like segue through it all, is the one of the things that lots of people have been telling me is they can't imagine being as open about our relationship or their relationship over something like a podcast. And I went on holiday with my sister. She even went and said, I've not listened to it because I didn't know if it was appropriate for me. Because I'm your big sister. I didn't know what kind of topics you're going to be talking about. And whilst we do we'll get into some quite maybe nitty gritty conversations, quite deep conversations. It's one of our big focuses is to try and keep this quite maybe even impersonal. We have personal anecdotes in there.
Yeah, we do.
But we want this to all be something that everyone can really relate to, and that everyone has experienced, while also being a form of personal therapy. So yeah, one of the big. A bit of both, but one of the things that the focus that I wanted to maybe try and segue our way into for the rest of this podcast is the idea of outside perception, because people always compare their relationships to other people's relationships.
Mm-hmm.
People always am I allowed to talk about my relationship to somebody else? Where's the line?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a big thing that a lot of couples have to learn how to navigate and manage in their relationship.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the focus that I want to start with. Is at the start of our relationship, we didn't talk to anyone about anything. We kept everything. We kept everything in our bubble.
Yeah.
And I think that was a part of it. Look, at the very beginning, I think we are very well suited for one another, and we always were very well suited for one another. But we both had some unhealthy tendencies at the very beginning of our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of them was pride. We were both very proud people.
We come from very prideful families.
We do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with pride.
It's not a bad thing if it's like everything in moderation. Do you know what I mean? It's not a bad thing if it doesn't actually inhibit.
Pride gives you allows you to know your own value.
Oh, it's brilliant, and it's so good to be prideful, just to be proud of who you are, of everything you have. Like it's very value focused and based, and I appreciate its role.
But it meant at the start of our relationship, if anything was wrong within our relationship, we did not tell anyone else.
No.
And there were times where we'd try and process things together about the negatives of our relationship, but that's a really hard thing to do, is to sit down and say, you suck in this way, and I suck in this way, and we need to work together to figure out how we can make this better, because we can't keep sucking.
I do think that's what forced us. I'm going to fly past that. I think that's what forced us to be so communicative in our relationship, though, because we felt like we couldn't talk to anybody else, and we felt like it was taboo to be like, oh, well, actually this happens and this sucks a little bit, because I think for me, at least, like in my mind, I was like, I don't want anyone to ever think that you're a bad person. I don't want anyone to ever get the wrong idea or get the wrong impression, or I don't want anyone to ever take something I've said out of context and like hate you or whatever. Like I just didn't want to sway other people's opinions of him, because we struggled so much already to have
that's true.
That was the beginning of our relationship, was everybody having their opinions, completely unwarranted, completely unrequested opinions, completely unsolicited opinions everyone had about us. And I'm not even talking about family. I'm actually talking about the circles that we were in and the friends the people that should have been friends that we were around. There was so many unsolicited opinions flying, and it was such a confusing time, and so awful and turbulent, and so horribly received, that it just filled us with almost shame, at the beginning. I almost felt like I didn't feel shame, but I almost felt like people expected us to feel shameful, even though we didn't do anything wrong at the start of our relationship. We didn't do anything wrong ever.
Yeah.
And I feel like people forced us to feel that shame, or at least to assume that they wanted us to feel shame. And so immediately I felt like I could never even... It was a pride thing, yes, but it was also a stubbornness thing of no, I was right about this relationship, and we didn't do anything wrong. We did everything right, everything by the book, if you will, and we did, go through... I'm going to say go through all the proper channels, as if we're in Severance, but you know what I mean? We did everything as we
went to HR, we informed HR
did.
of our
We
relationship.
informed HR.
Yeah.
HR was me at the time. We informed myself. No, but we did do everything in the right way, and it felt so frustrating that people still were just ignoring that, blatantly ignoring that, and giving unsolicited opinions of a situation that didn't even happen, or a context of something that didn't even happen. And so it filled us with this feeling of like, well, we can never tell anybody that anything is less than perfect, because all that we're going to be faced with is, I told you so, I told you so, I told you she was bad, I told you he was bad, I told you this was a bad idea, I told you so. And I think, yes, that's pride, but that's also embarrassment and like actual fear. And I was so worried about other people getting an ounce of like, oh yeah, told you he was bad, but like even for something silly, he never did anything to become across like a bad person. But people take things out of context, people warp things. We were so sick of that. Like that was something that was constantly happening to us at the start of our relationship, was people taking things out of context, people manipulating things, twisting them around. One day they're saying like, oh, you guys are so cute, you should be together. The second we're together, oh my god, you guys are horrendous, you're an awful like Talia, you're this demon villain girl. Like it was so
I
confusing.
do feel like you're dramatizing this a tiny.
I'm completely dramatizing it.
Well, no, just a tiny bit. They just called you Talia the demon, not Talia the demon girl.
Awful demon girl. No, it wasn't awful demon girl. I was just a demon.
Talia the demon.
But you know what I mean? It's just, I think that's where that came from.
Yeah.
But then that meant it pushed us even closer together, because then we were forced to process these things together. I actually have a very specific memory of a time where I can't remember the exact scenario.
So you have a very specific memory, but you can't remember the memory. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that memory. That was, guys, that was
so specific.
That warmed my heart. I hope
it's
you
not
all
a
feel,
heartwarming one. It's a sad memory.
I hope you all feel honoured to have shared that moment with us. Sorry, go on.
Anyways, I have a very specific memory. What I was going to say is I can't remember exactly the content of what was said.
Okay.
But we were in your room, and
when you say my room, do you mean that, like back at my parents' house?
Yeah, like I'm talking
very early days.
I'm talking like maybe we'd been together for 2 days.
Okay.
3 days maybe.
Cool.
And we were in your room, and you had gone out with.
Yep.
And he had told you what people had been saying about us behind our backs.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes,
and you came back, and I remember you were so upset about it, because obviously people had been talking behind our back, and it was all negative about me. Like it was nothing about you. I mean, you know, I doubt they would have told you if there was any negatives they said about you anyway, because they were telling you. But they had basically plotted, like this group of people had kind of, I believe that they plotted it and like calculated it, but they basically called like Oscar over to hang out with them, and then spent the whole, or like a period of time telling you all of the things that apparently everyone is talking about.
You've mixed up conversations.
Am I getting confused?
You've mixed up conversations.
Remind me how that went.
So it's, without getting into like the very nitty-gritty specifics, when I went out with that person, they informed me of a dinner that happened.
Yes.
Whereas
when people were discussing our relationship.
Yes.
And they were saying that I was leading you astray, or that I was using you, or I was manipulating. Again, this is probably where this complex of me thinking I'm going to manipulate you came from, because everyone told me that's what I was doing when I was you. Like,
true.
For the record, again, we will do an episode where we talk a lot more about our origin, but Oscar chased me. Like, Oscar, you came on to me first.
I did, but we were friends.
We were both friends. We both had a great connection. I'm not saying it was unsolicited, but what I'm saying is,
I made the move.
I never made any moves.
I made the move.
I never made any moves. So, like, for people to have taken our friendship and ever said that I was leading him astray and I was leading him on and I was doing this, what was I doing? Like, I wasn't.
We were literally
I was pushing him so far away.
Yeah.
I kept, like, rejecting him even before you were like coming on to me in a relationship way.
Well, that's just...
No, I did. But you know what I mean? I was pushing him away. I was trying to make it so clear that I wasn't interested. I was interested, obviously, but because everyone kept telling me,
I appreciate you putting that on the record.
Yeah, obviously I was interested from like always. I've always been interested, but obviously I was interested, but everyone was telling me that I was going to ruin his life, and I was ruining his life. So I was like, well, I care about him too much to ruin his life. So I kept pushing him away. And so it was so upsetting to me And obviously must have been upsetting for you to be told that they had like secretly had this. They didn't he tell you that they'd had this meal to discuss our relationship? Like that's why they called the meal together.
More or less.
Right? Which is like what? Like imagine caring so much about two people. I actually cannot. Like we've been famous since the start. Like imagine. I'm joking.
They were just very envious.
It was very envious. Yeah, and I don't actually hold any bitterness towards any of these people. Like it sucks. Sure? Well, it doesn't sound like that, does it?
It definitely.
I don't hold bitterness. I hold pain. It's painful.
It is.
Because I'm so upset that it had to be like that. Because it didn't. There was it was all false. And that's what hurt me so much. Because it was such a testament of my character from people who didn't even know me. Like people who had known me for a month. Just suddenly assuming that I'm this awful person. And I'm like, I've tried to never be an awful person. Like I just couldn't understand where it was coming from. And it gave me so much anxiety because I thought, what am I putting out that comes across like I'm this terrible person that would do these awful things that people are saying about me? And it was a really weird dynamic to go from being bullied my whole life in a very different way. Like when I was picked on at school, it was because of very personal things, but it was never about like my character. Like no one ever questioned my character. No one ever bullied me because they said I was a bully, and no one ever bullied me because they said I was a horrible person or I did these awful things. Like no one ever accused me of things. They just picked on me because I was weird, which like valid. I would pick on me too. But I'm joking. I would actually never pick on anyone. I don't know why I said that. But you know what I mean? Whereas they were just pulling things out of thin air. You
can reflect on it and you're like, I was different, and I can like.
Oh, I 100%
from a perspective of bullying, you can understand why you were a target.
Yes.
Not why it happened in the first place, but why you were a target.
Yes.
Whereas they were going after,
and I couldn't understand where it was coming from.
And they were going for personal character, and it wasn't true.
And it was all inaccurate. And I remember you coming home from that meeting, and I remember you obviously being hurt and upset by it because you were like, that sucks that you cared about me. It sucked that they were saying that about you. You also, I think, an element of you was a bit confused and a bit wary at that point of like, what do they know that I don't?
No,
I feel like you were
not in the slightest.
Really?
Not in the slightest.
You came across to me like that's how you felt.
No, I could not fathom the reason that they would do something like that. Because that is spiteful. It's pitiful.
It was spiteful,
and it's actually discussing human behaviour.
Yeah. And part of me still thinks like that was a fever dream.
It has to come all down to like being envious. It's the only thing that makes sense.
It is.
But that was 100%. This I can totally see how that entire experience shaped the beginning of our relationship. Actually,
it did.
and in terms of making us as stubborn as we were stubborn to there came a certain point of no return where we're like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we knew it was going to happen.
The biggest thing I love about that situation, though, is you came home and you were like, I have something to tell you and you're not going to like it. And I was like, what do you mean? And you were like, but I need to tell you because you would want to know, and I know you want to know, and we need to work through this together because I want you to be equipped to like handle, we were still actively seeing these people. I want you to be equipped to go into that next interaction, blah, blah, blah. And you sat down and you told me, and I was like hysterical. I think I actually had a panic attack because it was awful. Yeah, but I was obviously very, very hurt by it, and you were patient with me and you supported me through all of it, and putting your own feelings aside of it as well. You allowed me to go through that, and from that day forward, it kind of proved to me like this guy's got my back. Like he's always, even if in the moment, I think in the moment, obviously you stuck up for me, but at the same time, what can you say? Like, it's been and done. You know what I mean? You weren't in the scenario. You were just being told about the thing that happened.
I'm actually remembering my feeling about, you said about like me being like, what do they know that I don't?
Yeah.
I had this thing inside of me. And it was actually nothing to do with you. It was all about to do with me, of like, why do they think I'm so helpless? Why do they feel the need
to protect you?
Yeah, I remember thinking like, what are they seeing that I'm not? That in yourself. Yes,
that's so interesting.
It was nothing to do with you or me being wary of you. I was like, what am I putting out into the world that they feel the need to be like, oh, poor little Oscar, like, oh,
that is what it was.
He's being attacked by this demon, and I was like, I remember being like, excuse me. I'm not a fully grown adult, but like I was an adult, and I'm able to make my own decisions. And if they don't like it, they can leave.
If you don't like it, you can leave.
Thank you.
that actually was a big thing because whenever we were in a scenario one evening where we did confront it.
Mhm.
I left and you were still there.
Yep.
Remember?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
Okay, cool. We're trying to be cryptic because we're trying to protect people. As I say, like, I don't actually have any particular spite against any of these people. I have sadness, obviously, in my heart for them and for myself experiencing that, but I don't want to, like, call anyone out openly yet. But we'll save that for the origins episode.
You're such a slider. Well,
I like to leave the door open.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever name drop.
No, I know,
because
I know
we still want to be able to live our lives.
Yes.
But
in that scenario,
I'll let you finish off your point, but then I want to get.
I'm
back.
talking about the foundations of our communication style. Though.
Okay,
it's relevant. It's relevant.
That is fine. That is fine.
But in that scenario, I do remember Oscar telling me afterwards that he actually did turn around and say, like, listen, like, I know what I'm doing. I'm an adult. I'm not like, you did say that. And that now that you say that that's what your feeling was at the time, that makes so much more sense that was your response. Because I remember at the time feeling a little bit like, well, why didn't you turn around and say, you know me? And like, I'm not going to do that because you know me. But your initial response was like, I can make my own decisions. Like, you don't need to protect me. Like, you were a lot more kind of on that defensive. That makes so much more sense now, though.
Even if they turned out to be right, I'm making my decision.
Yes.
And I'm like, I will live with that decision.
Yeah.
If that is the case, I did not believe for a second it was right.
No.
And I didn't think they were right. Otherwise, I would have left.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
But
because also you didn't know these people that well.
No,
like, so there was no reason why. Like, it's not like these were lifelong friends that Oscar kind of just cut out of his life. Like, it's not like that at all. We met them at the same time, half of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was weird. But I think that formed, like, the beginning foundations of our communication style, which was just very open and very with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't feel like we could talk to anybody else about it. And it took a long time to be able to talk to... I don't know about you. I mean, I only really started talking to people about our relationship, like, 2 years ago?
So you initially...
Maybe 3?
So I remember we have a friend, Catherine. Yes. I will name drop Catherine.
We can name drop Catherine.
Catherine lived with us for a little while.
Yeah.
And was very active in... I say active in our relationship. She was very present in our relationship. That's the right word. She was
just
very
present in general. Yeah. She lived with us.
But at the very start of when we first lived in Scotland, she was very present.
Oh yes, yeah.
For like within the first year of us having moved here.
Before she lived with us.
She was very present as a friend for you, and in just in general at that time. And there were certain things that you were really struggling to deal with me, because I think I can't remember the specifics.
Yes, I remember.
I can't remember specifics.
I remember the specifics.
But I remember you needed somebody who wasn't me, and you didn't want to go to your parents because you didn't want your parents to be tainted with these like negative thoughts or whatever that you were having of me.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't necessarily negative, but you needed to process them.
Yeah.
And that one, and I remember you coming to me and having a conversation of saying, I need to talk to somebody about this who isn't you, and I want it to be okay. Is that okay? And me being like, sure. Why are you asking for my permission?
Yeah.
And you're like, because like we're a unit and like we should be able to talk through everything together. And we did later talk about whatever it was together.
Yeah, once I'd had some time to process.
But that was I like that idea of like pride, and actually from there we actually then I was like, okay, cool. This is clearly a big thing for you. We'll lay down ground rules of what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah.
And those are things that we have followed for our entire relationship. And it's actually, I can't name you the rules because they're so like...
they're just ingrained.
They've become subconscious at this point because...
I just generally, like, I personally... I'm not the type of person that ever wants to completely slag my partner to other people.
Good.
There are times. Some people are though, and that's fine.
Tick.
Tick. Green flag. I was supposed to say red flag. Green flag. Tick tick. But there are times where obviously Oscar does things that frustrate me, and I'll quite happily now like talk about the mini gripes of like the classic cliches of like leaving the toilet seat up, like all of that kind of.
I don't do that very often.
You don't, but that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying cliche things, but you know what I mean. Little things like
leaving
that.
my clothes on the floor.
Leaving your clothes on the
laundry
floor
basket.
next to the laundry basket. I mean, I do that too, so I can't really complain about that. The way you stack dishes in the sink, or
guilty.
Don't stack them, or you do stack them, but they're like some random Tetris like obstacle mismatch course, so then I end up breaking.
Hey, I like working my brain while I'm,
That's so good for you, not for me. Like little things, right? Like such little things that are so
things
trivial.
that you can live with.
Yeah, that are so trivial, and I don't mind other people knowing that you're not good at stacking dishes in the sink, and that you always leave things on the edge of the sink or whatever. And it's like how I don't mind people knowing that I always leave all my clothes on the floor, and I'm not very good at tidying up, and I don't mind people knowing that like I don't do the dishes very often.
I love how we earlier said we're not going to get into the nitty-gritties of us. We're openly sharing.
Oh, we're talking about
here is all of our red flags.
I also feel like they are very generic red flags, though. Do you know what I mean? But that's kind of the point.
We have specific red flags, but they'll stay hidden for a little bit longer.
Red. Those are kind of the points I'm trying to make. Is like I'll quite happily. Not quite happily, but like I'll be a little bit open with things like that. Whereas when it comes to actual, like, again, it's so hard to think because you don't really do anything that's specifically negative, but like anything that could be perceived in a way that people could turn around and be like, oh, that's toxic, if they don't understand the context or whatever, I'll specifically avoid telling people things like that, unless they're like my super close friends. Like super close friends get it because they get you, they know you really well, and they would never ever question anything like that. Like Catherine, for example, is one of those people. Lisa is one of those people. Like I'd quite happily say things like that to them because I know that they know you so well.
Name dropping friends.
I know. Shout out to the besties. And like Kirsten, like I know that they're the kind of people that just wouldn't question it, wouldn't judge.
We listen and we don't judge.
Exactly, and they would never see you any differently. Whereas there's certain people that like I wouldn't say that because like not that they would ever see you differently, but I wouldn't ever want to risk that. Or maybe they don't know you as well in the same context, and so they wouldn't take it the same way that I would take it.
The knowledge of us as a couple and me as an individual is very, very important in a lot of contexts, because the amount of times that you can moan about your partner and then they could be like, ugh, that's terrible, you should leave him. And like, well, there's more to it than that.
And the reality is, it's never moaning. It's always just like processing, I think. And there's certain things like...
there's a little bit of moaning in there.
There's always a little bit of moaning, isn't there? I think a big thing for me, though, is
I love English people who say, oh, I can't complain. I'm like, well, give it a minute.
Well, give it a minute. I'm sure you'll find something.
There'll definitely be something. At least, just wait.
Just wait.
If there's nothing right now, it'll definitely crop up.
No, exactly. And so it was a big thing that took me time. Nowadays, like, we're so solid in a sense of, like, I don't ever really feel like I need to, like, talk negatively about you. And I feel like a lot of people like, even our families know each other so well now that I wouldn't think twice about, like, on holiday, talking to Oscar's mum about the little dishes things that you do around the house. Like, I wouldn't ever say that and think, oh God, but I don't want her to think that I don't love you, or I don't want her to think that, like, I'm not still that I'm picking faults in you, because I'm not. And that like that's never the pinnacle of anything. It's a funny topic and sometimes it's like interesting to talk about. And so I don't feel that way anymore necessarily, but that's because there's not really anything that I need to offload anymore. Like, that's not really a thing.
One of the things that you've kind of touched upon is like the things that we've shared right now, like the our red flags, are very, very common red flags.
Yeah.
But it's actually the idea of comparison. Like people, like the reason that in this moment we felt comfortable sharing all of it is because it's something that we perceive is very, very common and very,
people
and it's the idea of like comparing yourself to others and other people, like as individuals, difficult. And comparing your relationship to other people, because it's something that I think nobody will find this necessarily super shocking. A lot of people idealize our relationship, and they're not aware of the work that we have to put in order to maintain this level of communication style. And it's something that we kind of touched on a little bit earlier. It's the idea that we share almost everything. Yeah. Like, we can't share everything because we don't live on top of each other nowadays.
And I forget things.
But in order to, we're actually very high maintenance as a couple.
Yes.
We're very, very high maintenance.
Yeah. Because we crumble if we don't have this form of communication for longer than a 2-week period, I would say, is our max. Like, I would say 2 weeks is like if we get to the end of a 2 weeks and we've not had a chance to actually sit down and connect on this way, you know, not necessarily, it doesn't need to be a 90-minute podcast, but even 30 minutes of actually just like fully offloading, catching up on each other's life and the details that we like feel are important about it, then we crumble. And we've had times where we've bickered. When you were on tour, for example, that was so difficult because you were away for a week at a time, but then when you were back, you were so exhausted, you had so much that you
also,
had to do or catch up on or whatever.
Often having to work the one day I was back.
Exactly, I worked weekends those weeks as well, and so we literally would go weeks without actually being able to offload things, and that was so difficult because, like you say, this is a very high maintenance relationship style, and that's why it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Like that is exactly the reason.
Definitely the reason.
It's exactly the reason that it doesn't work for everybody because other relationships have completely different dynamics, and like. We aren't we're not a framework by any means. Like we are our own relationship.
We're actually very easy people. Like we're both very flexible and very forgiving. But that's why in order to, if either of us were less forgiving, this style of communication wouldn't work because we're both very flexible in our approach towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we were more high strung, or you know, like the fact that we, you know, we're very forgiving. So that if something doesn't go exactly to plan, we're able to communicate it and we don't get upset.
But that's the key, as long as we communicate it.
Yeah.
That's where we reach frictions. And like the communication is such a core of our relationship. Because without it, that's where we get annoyed.
Yeah.
And and I think it actually is difficult because it's funny that you say, oh, people idealize our relationship. Like we also idealize our own relationship because there are times where we mess it up and we still don't get it right. And like, for example, like what you were saying about the other day about how you didn't know that you needed time on your own, so you didn't communicate it. So you were making me frustrated by just like palming me off and ignoring me, or like half responding, or like
that's more accurate.
Half responding. Like what you were doing is you were playing chess and you just would not put your phone down. You weren't listening to what I was saying, and it was annoying me because usually you're so good at communicating and saying, hey, I've had a long day. Is it okay if we just take 20 minutes to just sit and be, and then we can catch up?
It's very rare that we're at such a disconnect on our styles of days.
It is, and I'm not saying like you're wrong for that, but what I'm saying is that was a moment where you like not made a mistake, but you messed up. Like it didn't, like our communication style failed in that moment because you weren't using the communication, and that's why I'm the problem.
I just want everyone to know that in this moment I am the problem.
Always.
Thanks.
Always and forever. Just joking. It's always me. But in that moment, the communication failed. And so then, like, not the relationship failed. That's so, like, drastic wording. But you know what I mean? Like, that's why it led to frustration. Whereas if you'd have just communicated initially, I would have been like, yeah, totally. I get that. Thanks so much for saying that. Like, I'll just go off. I'll jump on a live stream or whatever and have a different outlet and then come back to you when I'm more on your level.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But that's what I mean in a sense. But we idealize our relationship because I came to expect that. Like, I've come to expect you to be able to communicate, and you come to expect me to be able to communicate. So whenever we have times where we do falter and we do struggle with it, then that's when the communication, like, breaks down because we are not, like, in tune with it ourselves. And that happens when we're, like, tired, when we're individually, like, overworked and overstimulated or whatever. Or for whatever reason. It just happens sometimes, doesn't it? Like, we go through phases where that's just a thing that happens. Yeah. But it's the awareness that is what's happening that makes it less impactful than if it was just a breakdown that was happening and we were like, what's happening? I don't understand 100%. Why. Like, it's because we're aware that that's what's happening, that it doesn't actually last as long, you know?
And one of the other things that I wanted to, talk about is, like, when people compare relationships, it's a very slippery slope because everyone is different. People, like, the couples are different, but the way that they interact will be different. But that no relationships aren't a competition.
No.
And it's one of the things that, like with my family on the holiday, we played the Mr. and Mrs. game.
Yes. And it was a competition.
It was a competition because it's who knows each other the best.
Yeah.
And after a certain point, I think it was after the second or third round, we were just like, actually, we're not going to keep score because maybe this isn't a very nice thing to do.
Yeah.
When it was against my parents and then my brother and
your sister.
It just wasn't necessarily a nice thing to do. But then we got to the final round and we aced our answers in a very, very quick time. And then for the the next day, every single one of my family members were like, I'm so impressed at how well you two did on that game. I was like, I'm glad you just remember the last round and not the first round, because we didn't do as well on the first round.
Still not bad though.
No, we did fine. But that's one of the things, and it's something that you'll probably notice as these podcasts go on. The first 20 minutes, it takes us a while to find our rhythm.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've been talking since the technical difficulties, we've been going non-stop for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And now this is we're starting to communicate really efficiently and really smoothly. And that you're immediately, you know where my brain's going before I finish a sentence, and I know where you're going, and it enables us to have a really efficient conversation.
Yeah, but that's why we need that connection.
Yes.
And that's why it breaks down if we don't have it for so long, because there's so much to catch up on and so much like room in order to get us back to that place. But
that's why, like, if we compared our relationship to somebody who like my mum and dad's relationship, they managed to have effectively a long distance relationship while my dad worked for the best part of 10 years. We would not survive that.
No, we would not.
Like, there is absolutely no chance. But they have a very very different communication and relationship in general to us. But in order for them to be able to survive something like that, they need to have a specific like relationship infrastructure in place in the way that they will communicate the things that they'll talk about. And also personal
infrastructures. Like, you have to be very specific type of people.
Big time.
Because my parents are like not the same. Like, my parents have always been really close and really like, you know, my dad would always come back home at the end of the day and they would always be together. And my mum has actually said that to me several times, is that like, you know, she understands that like sitting down in the evening with your partner and like catching up on your day or whatever, like that's something that they've always done. And I remember that growing up, like they always would have that catch up over dinner or whatever it was. And then have that quality time together. And I think that there's the same, like I couldn't see my parents surviving in a long distance relationship in that same way, because they're not those type of people like that. That's what they seek from a relationship, is that being able to kind of connect in the evenings.
But also when you look at like my parents, we always say that my parents have like holiday selves. Like,
yes.
And so, but I think that actually comes from an earlier part of their relationship when they would go on holiday.
Yeah.
And that's when they would spend time together.
They would be together and
And they would actually, I think that's when they would like learn to communicate better with one another, because that's the time they had, or being in that change of environment.
Just being in a happy world.
But that's how like that was their infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I definitely would say we're probably more similar to your parents in terms of the
we need the kind of daily
the communication.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But if you try to compare, when you try to make those comparisons, it no matter like how you compare, it's not going to be an equal playing field, because relationships form for different reasons.
Exactly. And it's about the foundations of a relationship, I think, and how it forms at the start. And I think like, didn't your parents meet traveling? Like your dad was...
No.
Your mum was... Oh no, well, she was teaching somewhere else. Like she wasn't living here permanently, was she, at that point? So like that is... They met on a sort of temporary-ish basis, in the sense of with the knowledge that he travels a lot, because he was already traveling for work at that stage, and she was living somewhere temporarily. Whereas we met, and like our relationship was formed after being friends who worked together, and like, you know what I mean, like we were formed in a very close quarters. Like we worked together, we rehearsed together 3 days a week. Like we literally were on top of each other at the start of our friendship, let alone our relationship that blossomed after that. And so it's inevitable that the foundations were going to need more physical, like not physical contact in a sense of touching, but like physical contact in a sense of being
proximity,
in close quarters, in close proximity. And that's obviously an element of our foundation. And I think my parents were the same, to be fair. I mean, they had an element of distance.
It was one of the only ways we survived. When I did a tour of Panto, and I drove across the UK for 6 weeks or something like that. And far too long. But during those times, I would send you a message almost every night or whatever, and we would just have a messenger call for 30 minutes to try and update on the highlights of the day. And,
it was tough because we could never get as much time as we wanted, but maintaining any time was so important. I actually think that we didn't do that for the first week.
And we learned after that because it was tough.
Yeah.
Because then you came back and I was irritable and I was annoyed because I was going to work at a job that I didn't even really want to be at. I didn't even really want to be doing. I didn't have a great time at work anyway. And I just kept begrudging the fact that I was working on the days that you were back, the 2 precious days that you were back. And I had to work on them.
I was only back for about 36 hours every week.
Yeah, and I had to work on them. And I was so irritable because I was annoyed to be leaving you. I was annoyed to be going somewhere that I didn't even want to be. And like, it was just so frustrating. But then I was obviously just not good company in the like 10 minutes that we were together.
I was like, we've got 3 hours together right now, and you're like, 3 hours isn't enough, so I'm gonna be grumpy.
Exactly. But it was really difficult. Whereas like 100%. Once we did have those calls,
that's not me begrudging it, but that was
I 100% agree.
With the nose and everything.
It was my nose for I'm yawning, sorry.
One more time?
I was just like, that's not good enough. I want more than that, please. Take a bite, give me 6.
I'm glad that you repeated it because that was funny. I enjoyed that.
Sorry, I yawned through that the first time, but it sounded better the second time anyway.
That's okay, you're forgiven.
But yeah, it's definitely down to the foundations, I think, and that changes over time as well. Like, it evolves, you know.
And 100%, because like as you grow as people, like, so your foundations are at the start of your relationship. Yeah. And I mean, in our instance, that was 5-6 years ago. Almost 6. And so, you know, with that period of time, the foundation was, you know, let's say the first year and let's say 18 months.
It is 18 months. That's the development period.
Given our friendship as well, and we'll, you know, 18 months, 2 years, whatever. But after those first 2 years, I started drastically changing as a person.
You did.
Like it's something that we mentioned on the first episode of the podcast. I wasn't a very motivated person, and it's something that I actually wanted to talk about just a little bit on this episode because I've had people reach out to me regarding it. And one of the ways at school, I was always quite bright, and so I didn't have to work at anything in order to do well enough. That's something I know you relate to as well.
Which is actually harder than it sounds.
It is.
Actually.
Because then A-levels came around, did not do well, wasn't motivated to put the work in to make sure I did well.
Yep.
I also had other things going on. And it that just kind of crumbled. And then I spent the next 3 years trying to figure out who I am. And then, you know, during that time I met you and our relationship started to blossom. And when the pandemic hit, I didn't know what I was doing with myself. And I've never been very good at drawing. I've never been very good at art. I now teach game art and animation at a university. That's what I do. And so yeah, I'd like to say I'm quite good at art now. But that wasn't an overnight skill that I picked up, and I had to learn how to dedicate myself. And at the start of our relationship, I didn't dedicate myself to anything. You had all my time. I was dedicated to you.
Yeah.
You were the goddess, and I walked on your I kissed the ground you walked on. Like,
which I actually found quite annoying.
Oh, thanks.
Because I'm not that type of person. Like, I liked it, but I was also like, no, I don't mean it like that.
Stabbing.
I obviously incredibly appreciated it, and it was so lovely, and the ways in which
here's a knife. You could just put that right in between my shoulder. Right, my shoulder blades. Oh, thank you. Oh, right where that belongs. Yep. Oh.
No, it got to a place where it was annoying only because it began to become an excuse.
Yeah.
So at the beginning stages of it, when it was entirely just full of love, and it was so like, it was almost uncontrollable from you because it was purely just like, no, I love you so much, so I'm going to do this. It was lovely and it was really nice and it was so well received. Eventually, though, it became a point where I'd start to see your downfall and I'd be so like, how can I help you? How can I help you? And then it would sort of come back in my face and be like, well, it's because like you're my everything and you're like, I'm devoting myself to you. And you never used that as a blame thing, but that's how it came across at the time. And that's when it started to be really annoying.
And I felt that
I know you
internally.
did.
Yeah.
I know you did. But that's when it started to feel annoying for me. Is I'm like, well, I never asked for this. Like, I never said that, like, I needed you to... Like, I'm not that... I know I'm high maintenance as a person.
I'm not that girl.
I know I'm high maintenance as a person, but I've never been that high maintenance. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never demanded... Like, I'm not the girl that's like, you have to buy me flowers. I'm not Meghan Trainor, right? Okay? I'm not dear future husband Meghan Trainor, where I'm like, I require everything.
I immediately know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense.
I say that jokingly. Meghan Trainor is a wonderful, beautiful person, and I absolutely love her, just for the record. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in that song, it comes across as though she's very high maintenance and whatever. And like I've never been that type of person. I've never demanded anything from any of my partners other than maybe like a little bit of time and attention. Like I feel like that's what they demand back from me. But you know,
I definitely used you as an excuse, but
You did.
at the beginning, like as you
but
said,
you didn't admit that for so long.
No, I didn't. And
so long.
But in like the core part of our foundation was me giving you all my time.
Yes, yeah.
And that's why there are even times now where I will get a little bit frustrated, where I will. But it's also because I want to, and but I will give you more time. I say, okay, I will give you from 6 o'clock till 10, and then I've got to be up early in the morning, and I'll start giving you it from 4 p.m. until 12.
Yeah.
And so not only did I sacrifice time in that day, I'll be tired for the next day, and then I'll wake up the next day and I'm just like, why did I do that? Like that was so irritating.
Yeah.
But then also, like for the next day, you'll be like, hee, I had so much time.
I love you.
I got so much time.
Thank you, Sticky. Hope you have a good day.
and our relationship will feel so good, and so like there's a give and take that needs to happen.
There is.
But the idea of like me developing the motivation came from that like that blame almost. And I things kept not going my way. There was nothing drastic, but I started to realize that the common denominator for things not working out fully was me, and I wasn't. This is going to sound really, really corny, but I at that time I felt like I was living for you. And
well, Mr. Cordy Collins, everybody.
I felt like I was living for you, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to keep growing and to just keep being a better person, because I thought you were so incredible, and I thought like the only way that I'm going to be able to keep up is if I keep trying and I keep working.
So crazy, because I just had such the opposite opinion. I was like, you were amazing, and I literally didn't even deserve you.
And so I got to work, and one of the things that I always loved and I still love is cartoons. But I didn't know anything about art, and so I started to learn how to do something that I wasn't good at, and that was hard. That took, like, don't get me wrong, I have an artistic brain. I've always been like, I'd like writing music or whatever. You've got
really good vision. You've got a really good storytelling brain. You've got a brilliant imagination. No, you do. You're amazing. You really are. Like, you always had these skills that really lean you towards the animation. I just think you just never had the actual practical skills, but you've always had these little
never had the
hints.
Hard skill,
Yeah, but you've always had these little hints. Like, you always had such good vision. And so, like, even when I couldn't understand it, like, I don't know if you remember when we first moved up, but that I watched the videos back recently on the iPad, one of your audition pieces when you had to make that thing up. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not ideal. It's not great.
Was not great.
But I could see in you that there was a vision. And don't get me wrong, I don't get it. Like, I don't get the vision. And I still don't understand, like, what exactly you were going for.
Me neither.
No, but I could tell that you at the time did. And I could tell that you were like, no, it has to be like this. And even like it was like a devised piece. Like, Oscar had made it up, and he would like mess up one of the words, and he'd be like, "Oh, I have to start again." I'm like, "But no one knows. Like, no one gets it." You're like, "No, but it's wrong. It's wrong." And I was like, "I don't understand." But it's because you have you had such a vision in your head, and you've always had that, and that's so like transfers into animation so much, and so many other things. But I've always admired it about you, because I'm like, even if you can't actually verbalize it to anyone else and like explain it, like, you know what you're looking for, and that's all that matters. And I'm very similar in that way, but I still, just because I'm similar doesn't mean I can understand your vision, and you often can't understand mine either.
But that's where going into something like animation and art, I'm now able to start expressing my vision in a more
tangible way, or like translating it.
A great word, more tangible way. But it took me a long time in order to actually be any good. I remember my first term was 2D fundamentals when I was a student. And I mean, I now have to teach 2D fundamentals, which I still think is a travesty, because it's not my strong point. I'm much more of a 3D guy.
Hey, I hope none of your students are listening to this.
I hope they're not listening either. But my first term, I dedicated myself to learning how to draw. I don't know if you remember.
I do. You were brilliant.
I was like day and night. I had a pencil, and I like in a 12-week period, I worn through an entire entire HB pencil, and I'd never worn away a pencil in my life, but I knew that I had to get better, and
You put the work in.
But that motivation, it started. I used you as an excuse to begin with, and I wanted to get better for you. But after a while, I started to feel the accomplishment. It's the same as like when you start exercising, and like mum and dads who start to say that they're exercising so that they can have longer lives with their kids or whatever. But then after a while, you start to feel the runner's high, and you're like, I like this.
I actually want to do this for me now.
This is, and you start to.
I don't care if my kids want me around.
you start to develop that idea of like, I don't know if it's a self-respect thing, but like you start to.
You just chase the it's like dopamine chasing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
When it is life, it is human instinct to want to improve at something.
Yeah.
But it's finding that initial motivation that's difficult, and I'm always quite good at the initial motivation. I've not got very good stamina at maintaining my motivation. That's where I struggle the most.
Yeah.
Which you're very good at. You're so good at just pushing through and cracking on with the crap stuff that no one wants to do.
It's something that I've had to learn and develop.
Yeah. And I know it's something that I will learn and develop with time. And it is something I am better at now than I used to be, but definitely I've got a ways to go with it. But it was such a big thing for you, learning that motivation. And I remember, like, it's so lovely for me now to hear you talk about yourself now and all the things about yourself that you actually like now and that you're proud of, because, like, it's so different to who you were a few years ago. And that is the main bulk of why you living for me upset me so much, is because I was like, but you're so wonderful, you should live for you. Like, you're so wonderful, you should see that enough to be like, no, I want to live for me. It's not about me. And it used to annoy me that you put me above you, because I was like, why would you do that? Like, what's wrong with you?
I really
and you taught me to put me above myself, above you. So, like, why would you, you know what I mean?
And I really appreciate and love that. But that's part of the reason that I think, like, comparison is such a dangerous thing as well. Like people could look at our relationship at that time and be like, wow, he's so devoted to her. Like, oh, what a fantastic thing. But actually, that was a very unhealthy stage of our relationship.
Really, yeah.
And very unhealthy for me. And so, yeah, I think that comparison, it's a useful tool to see what is somebody else doing that I'm not. Could this be applied to me?
It's useful for inspiration.
That's the word.
Not for translation. You know, it's not for replication. It's for inspiration. Like, it's good to look at things.
Inspiration, not replication.
Yeah. It's good at looking at things and being like, oh, that's so interesting that you do that within your relationship. Like, maybe we should try that, or maybe we should think about that, or what would that look like for us, or whatever. Rather than being like, oh, this person, like, I don't know, this person brushes you, like, uses your tooth, like, they share toothbrushes. Like, we should do that. That clearly means they love each other more.
That's bad dental hygiene.
Don't say that. Told me that she does that.
Does she?
Don't put this in.
Oh.
Let me cut that out.
Can I bleep that?
No.
No? Okay.
Maybe.
I think I might want to keep that in, but fine. I'll just bleep the name.
Yeah, just anonymise it.
Yeah, if you go to, like, dentists and stuff, like, you can have, like, different bacteria.
I know, I agree.
And I know that when you kiss, you might think, oh, you're sharing for the bacteria, but it goes deeper, like gums and stuff. And most people don't stick their tongues into people's gums. I know some people do. If you do, seek help. But but sharing a toothbrush is not advised.
Dental discretion is advisory.
Yes. Warning. This is not medical advice. Go seek a dentist.
Go see your dentist. But anyways, what I was trying to say is that some people might be like, oh, that makes us closer, but, like, respectfully, I would never share your toothbrush, because saliva scares me, and that's disgusting. And specifically toothbrushes are, like, such a specific thing to me that, like, I have to replace
your toothbrush very often.
I do, because it just gives me the ick. Like, toothbrushes just freak me out for some reason. I don't know why. They just always have. Like, dental hygiene's always just been a thing for me. But
and that's good.
Yeah.
It means you've got nice teeth.
Yeah. Well, they're there.
They are there. But what
I agree. Comparison that was such a weird example, but comparison is definitely not it's a useful tool at times, but it's not.
And do you know what? Hey, absolutely no judgment to anybody who does share toothbrushes outside of a medical level. Like, it's not advised for
you're not a dentist. Who are you to judge?
It's not advised for the sake of your health. From a relationship perspective, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
It is very, very sweet. And to quote How I Met Your Mother, aren't we all looking for somebody to share a toothbrush with for the rest of our lives?
Yeah, it just gives a closeness, doesn't it?
And that was said by a hockey player from
Ooh.
the New York or Canada or something. I can't remember. They actually got a celebrity in, and they were like, "Listen, Marshall and Lily share a toothbrush. What do you think of that?" And they're like, "That's sweet." So if anybody is a How I Met Your Mother fan, let me know your favorite quotes or episodes or anything like that, because I've seen it all too many times.
It's one of your comfort shows, isn't it?
I've not seen it in a while. Maybe I'll start rewatching it.
I think it was last year, but yeah.
But yeah, I feel like this has been a lovely episode, talking about like
so many things.
several things, but like the key theme being like how you view yourself within a relationship, and how that's viewed as an external as well.
Yeah.
And so I think we're getting to that time where we want to begin rounding off this podcast. And so
talking about our relationship.
I would love to hear your relationship for the week. And if you don't have it ready, I do.
I do too. But you go first.
I think you went fast last time. Yeah. So I've got two.
Oh.
So
I like this part, guys.
So the first thing that I want to mention is this hoodie. So Talia asked me what hoodie I liked from the website. She didn't ask me anything about price. She didn't tell me, like, I'm notorious. I'd say I'm notorious. Like, if you showed me a black hoodie and you told me it was £3.50, and then you showed me an hoodie that I actually like the color of, but it's more.
Even if it was £5.
Even if it's £5, I would say, yeah, go for the dark one. It's fine. It'll do. Because I'm stingy AF. I'm
yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm good at spending money on you because I care about it, and I'm good at spending money on other people in general. But I am stingy on things for myself. And so Talia didn't tell me how much this cost. And if anybody's curious, go look it up for yourself. It's diabolical.
I actually want to say it's further than that. I had already ordered it because I knew that this was going to be your favourite. And I only asked you which one your favourite was after I had ordered it, because I just wanted to check and get you excited. And you said this one immediately, and I was like, oh, well, we'll have to wait and see what comes. And then when it came, I was very happy that I'd chosen.
Bearing in mind, I ordered Talia's one, but I did it at Christmas time. And so I remember going through the list of all of the ones on the website. I couldn't remember any of their pricing.
No.
I couldn't remember. And you specifically, you just asked me there and then, and it was the one I remembered, and I thought, I'm not going to take a look. And I just really appreciate that you know that about me.
That's the only time in our relationship where it's appropriate for me to not tell you the full truth, is when I'm buying you presents, and Oscar just doesn't receive things well when he knows that people have spent money on him. So
I don't mind people spending money on me.
It's because we share money.
Yes.
And so you feel like you spent it on yourself, but that's not how it works.
That's not how presents
money that
work.
I made on Tier Talk as present.
Yeah, that's definitely how that works. No, I love this hoodie, and I love the color. I love the design. It's so comfortable, and I really, really appreciate you having got it and ordered it for me in general.
That's perfect.
And
Oscar always had a vision of doing this podcast in hoodies.
That was always the
vision.
I love that I'm blue and you're pink, and I know it's very patriarchal colors and but
I love pink
and I love blue, and it just feels nice. And I also like that we're repping some fun brands.
Yeah,
I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I'm a
big doll fan.
I was going to say you're not necessarily a Barbie fan, but
I'm a toys and dolls in general.
Yeah.
Like if this was Monster High, I think I'd freak out a little bit more.
Yeah.
If it was Littlest Pet Shops, you best believe.
But it's a lovely color of pink.
It's beautiful, and I do love Barbie. I really love Barbie, and I love all that she stands for.
Yes. Feminist queen.
Yes.
Right.
What's your second one?
I feel like do you have? You said you have one.
I do have one.
Then I'll let you do your one, and then we'll finish off.
Finish off with yours. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Special. Much. Anyways, my relationship this week.
I just want to say thank you for this. I thank the camera, and I was just talking about it really nicely.
You've already thanked me.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I know you do. I appreciate you. I'm glad you like it. So my relationship this week is you on holiday. I love it. I love you when you're around your family. I love you on holiday. There's nothing that makes me happier than just seeing Oscar happy, and happy on such a different level, just seeing you so fulfilled in so many areas, seeing all your cups full. I just love that. And you were eating good food, and you were just having good times. Well, you don't like cheese as much as me, but you were drinking wine and like you were just enjoying yourself. Like
really
you just
was.
let go. You weren't thinking about work. You weren't thinking about anything. You weren't worried about me for the first time on holiday. Like usually you'll be like, oh, you okay? You okay? And you'll check in with me, and I'm constantly like, babes, you don't need to check in on me. You're fine. Like I'll tell you if I have a problem. You didn't do any of that this time. It was great because you just knew. Like you knew, and you were having a great time. I was having a great time. Like everything was great. And I just love it when you're on holiday and when you're around your family and just that whole environment. Like you're just so filled, like just so fulfilled, and it's so lovely. And I love seeing you with your niece and nephew. Like they're I just love seeing you with kids in general, but like with your niece and nephew, they love you so much and they really look up to you, and I love that. And I mean, as they should, you're amazing. But you know, I just love seeing that, and I just love it whenever we are in. You're always raving about how, oh, it's so nice to be somewhere where it's warm and like it smells so good out here, and like everything. Like you just love everything about being in different places. And I love seeing you in those. I love seeing you see the world, and I'm just so excited for our trip to Italy to see you experience another culture again, and just like being in that setting. Okay, sadly it's away from your family, but you're still gonna love it in the same way, and I'm so excited about that for you. So yeah, that's on my relationship this week. I love it.
Thank you so much. That was really nice, and it's basically the second one for me. Was you on holiday with my family?
Oh really?
And it's so interesting that you mentioned that this time I didn't worry about you.
Yeah.
Because that's literally like that's the relationship.
Oh really?
Is
not
that
having to worry about it.
you just fit so well in. Like I don't know. I don't know if it's the fact that we've now been together 5 years or what it is, but you just blended in, and it was to the point I didn't have to worry, and I knew that at every point you were going to be fine. And we went on walks with my dad. You had one-on-one conversations with my mum. You were well and truly integrated as part of the family, and at no point did I think, oh, I should check that she's doing okay. Well, like there were points where I checked that you're doing okay, but it was like, how's your wine doing?
Yeah,
and
it was like, do you need a top up? Have you eaten enough? Are you okay?
And at every point you were like, yeah, I'm good. Do you need more wine? And I said, yeah. And you're like, okay. And then you went and topped mine up.
Yes.
And I just loved seeing you so integrated as part of my family. And it was just extraordinary. I also love the cleaning that you've done downstairs today, and like seeing you've done such an incredible job post holiday. I love to clean before the holiday, so that when we come back from a holiday that it's immaculate and ready to go. But I was working last week and I didn't get the opportunity to clean. I did an all right job.
You did really
considering.
well. I was very grateful. I felt bad because I was working.
But it wasn't as much as I would normally do, and it left me feeling a little bit frustrated when we came back, and I've just been a little bit exhausted recovering from being wine drunk for 5 days. I've done little bits here and there, and I've done okay.
Great.
You know, I installed a washing machine for the first time.
You did. That's another relationship. Oscar literally installed a washing machine. You are crazy, by the way. Our washing machine was broken. We had a new one on order for a while, and we had to get the plumber out to like uninstall. What's the word? Detach the other washing machine. Before the new one got delivered, and so he came and he detached it and whatever, and Oscar was there, obviously watched it all happen, and then the new washing machine got delivered but they wouldn't install it, and so then Oscar was waiting to get the plumber back to install it, and then he was like, I'm just going to give him till the morning, and if he doesn't get back to me then I'm just going to do it. And I was like, what? Like, Oscar, you can't just install a washing machine. Like, what do you...
But I watched him do it, and I was like, there's like 3 main pipes you've got to manage.
Oscar's like, I feel like it would be easy. And I'm like, surely it's not easy, otherwise why would people have a job like installing and like detaching
and like having
machines?
Watched me done it, you can see why it's a job, because it takes a while.
It does take a while, and it is a bit finicky and like rough, but like you did it. You literally did it start to finish, and I'm so amazed and proud of you, and it's working perfectly. There's a teeny tiny leak, but we can fix that. It's not a problem.
It is teeny tiny.
Yes, it is. It is.
It's like 10 like milliliters over an hour. Like it's minuscule.
It's nothing at all.
And I think we'll just need to get a new part in order to.
Yeah, I think it's just the bracket's a little bit worn. That's all.
But that's great. You know,
that is really impressive.
I do feel I was really proud of myself. I'm a man's man.
You're a man's man.
I'm a manly man.
You're a manly man. That was a big thing, actually, just to round the episode off. Speaking of comparison, actually, just to round the episode off in the spirit of the theme, which is comparing and all of that kind of stuff, outward perception. you were very nervous when we first got together because I'm a builder's daughter.
You are a builder's daughter.
And you are not.
I'm not a builder's daughter. I couldn't help that I'm not a builder's daughter.
You couldn't help that, and you were worried about that. But I've always been quite handy because my dad taught me loads of things growing up, how to use a drill, how to, all of these kind of standard things, which your dad did teach you. However, you never really had a reason to put it into practice because your dad is very handy and he would typically do those kind of things. Whereas
I wallpapered my bedroom with him. That's about as big as it ever got.
Yeah, exactly. And when we first moved up, whenever little things needed done, either I would do them or we would ask my dad to do them because he loves it. Like he always says how much he loves coming up and doing stuff on the house. Like he does enjoy that because it's a nice thing for him to be able to do for us. But you always did feel a little bit at the beginning like, oh, I should be able to do this. Like, when it comes to hanging the TV, things that aren't actually just generically easy, but like hanging, shelves and TV units and things like that, you're like, oh, I should be able to just do this. I should just be able to do this. And I had to keep reminding you that, like, babe, it's just like, you've just not done it before. Like, it doesn't mean that you're any less of a man or any whatever. It's not something you've done, but you've actively worked really hard to do more things like that. And you've put loads of furniture together recently. You've taken things apart, like the bed you took apart. Like, I'm pretty sure I put most of our beds together. Like, that was something that I did when we first got them because I've just always done that. But you took that big bed apart from this room. Like, you've hung loads of shelves and things around. You put like shelves together in your room as well. And desks and things. You've installed that washing machine. You've done so many things recently that is so much more like, wow, you're really like...
I'm a handyman.
You are. And it's something that I love because that came from that feeling, that like insecurity about it was from like comparison. You were like, oh, I have to be that because that's what a man is. But that's not true. For one, you are a man. That's going to be an
entire topic for another episode is how men are perceived today and how women are perceived today.
And how that affects relationships.
Yeah, big time. But thank you so much for acknowledging that.
I'm just proud of that.
It's something that I've actively worked at, and I really appreciate you.
And I can see, I don't think twice now about being like Oscar's literally. I've got a desk over there that Oscar literally built like for me from scratch. He just figured it out, put it together. It's not like a flat pack desk that you buy. Like, he got a piece of wood and he got like some units and he just figured it out and made it happen. And it's really impressive. I
found the bracket that was like, this will do.
You're like, this will do, exactly. So like, it is genuinely really impressive.
And I found out that bracket was for something else and was really important. And I was like, we're gonna figure out something else.
Mad. But no, I'm very proud of you, and I think you should be proud of you too.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Relationship podcast. Sorry, I ended on the relationship, and so I was.
You're going crazy, girl. Yeah. Pop off, queen.
Thank you so much for listening to the Relationship podcast. Make sure you. Sorry. Relationships podcast.
You created the name.
I did. Relationships podcast. I'm so sorry. It's been a long podcast. If you guys don't already follow us on our socials, please make sure you check out the Oz and Tally's Facebook and Instagram. TikTok will be coming shortly.
Ding ding.
I love that you ding ding because I'm so not doing that.
I know you're not. And Spotify as well. Ding.
So you can check it out if you're listening to this on Spotify. Do consider giving us checking us out on YouTube, where you can see some of the more
live action version.
But also, if you are watching this on Spotify, we appreciate and love all the support that we've received from
100%.
The first episode. And thank you so much for hanging around so long for the journey. And
yes, and we appreciate you guys, and we're so excited for what is still to come on this adventure. I also want to say thank you so much to everybody who has left comments and left and given us their feedback. We really appreciate that. And if you do have any more
hopefully
comments,
those who have reached out, I've been trying to apply some to this episode.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any more questions or anything else they want to know, please do leave more comments. Or you can private message us on the Oz and Tally's Instagram 100%, or Facebook.
100%. But keep leaving us your feedback. We would love to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And loads more topics to come. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for checking us out, guys. And we will see you next time.
I love you, you little shit.
What?
Relationship.
I love you, you little shit.
I love you, you little shit. I love you.
Bye, guys.